On January 4th, 2009, Israeli ground troops moved into the village of Abed Rabbo on the outskirts of Jabalia. Radi Abed Rabbo's family home lies right on the edge, facing southern Israel.
The tanks were surrounding our area from all sides. We could hear intense gunfire, soldiers screaming. The house was shaking. A missile landed here. We kept on running from room to room. Some of the resistance were in the houses behind us. We were caught in the crossfire.
3 days later, the Abed Rabbos heard a loudspeaker announcement telling them to evacuate their home on the spot. They were told by the Israeli army to leave their homes and to walk to this area carrying white flags. When they arrived here, they joined many other residents of this village. Elderly men, women, and children were told to stand on this side of the road, whereas teenage boys and young men were separated and told to stand on the opposite side of the road. Radi says he had no idea what would lie ahead as Israeli soldiers took them away.
First they pushed us, shoved us, and insulted us. Then they divided us in small groups and used us as human shields. The Israelis were afraid of going into the houses, so they would send us ahead to tell people to evacuate. They made me dig holes in the wall and enter the houses first to check in case they were booby-trapped. We were put in front, so in case of gunfire, we would be the ones on the receiving end.
Meanwhile, just one street away, Radi's uncle Majdi was going through the most terrifying 24 hours of his life.
The officer said I would not see my family if I didn't do it. I said I didn't want to, but he said I had to follow his orders. He pushed me with his weapon, held me by my neck, and kicked me. He said, "Go."
Majdi says he had to go back and forth between Israeli soldiers and 3 Hamas fighters holed up in this house, now flattened. The battle was raging all around.
When I arrived at the front door, I was surprised to find 3 gunmen from Al-Qassam Brigade. One of them was wearing a suicide vest, and the others were carrying Kalashnikovs. I had to come here 4 times. The last time I went into the house from here because the entrance was destroyed. Each and every time, Israeli soldiers would tell me that they had killed the fighters, and each time I found them more injured but still alive. The last time I came here was at 1:30 in the morning.
Majdi lived in the adjacent building. He says the soldiers made him dig this hole to allow him access to where the fighters were holding their ground. After doing this 4 times, the Israeli soldiers took Majdi to this white building where he was released along with his nephew Radi. Al Jazeera put the accusations made by Radi and Majdi Abed Rabbo to the Israeli army. In its response it said, "The IDF operated in accord with the rules of war and did the utmost to minimize harm to civilians uninvolved in combat. IDF forces were instructed to make no use for any purpose whatsoever of the civilian population during the combat, and certainly not as human shields. After an inquiry with the commanders who fought in the area, there is no evidence that such events occurred." But for Radi and Majdi, the memories of those days are still vivid. Hoda Abdel Hamid, Al Jazeera, Abed Rabbo, Gaza.